So far, I'm sorry to say, political ads this season have been a little mediocre. No big standout ones. I think this one's pretty good, though.
Bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
Greater enforcement so that you don't have these, anchor babies.
Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
Do you regret using the term anchor babies yesterday on the radio?
No, I didn't. I don't regret
You don't
it.
regret
We should end references.
Yeah, to me, it's about enforcing the laws in this country.
They're getting out.
This is the Republican Party Pass It On, English and Spanish. That was put out today by Priorities USA. They're a super PAC that is supporting Hillary Clinton. Also coming out swinging today on that same issue was Richard Trumka, who's the head of the AFL-CIO. Watch this.
There were no codes or hidden messages here. These candidates are telling us they believe that some people are superior and others are inferior, and they intend to govern our country on that basis. This is the politics of fear and division, and it's on an entirely new level.
Richard Trumka, head of the AFL-CIO, talking about Republican candidates for president. The AFL hasn't made a presidential endorsement yet, but today leaked news that Richard Trumka had lunch at Vice President Biden's house today. Presumably, they not only ate lunch, presumably they were talking about whether or not Vice President Biden is going to run for president. On Hillary Clinton's first day back on the campaign trail after a short vacation yesterday, in what may or may not have been a refreshing change for her. This time, reporters didn't only want to ask her about her email server from her time as Secretary of State. Now, her first day back from vacation, she got precisely one question about the emails. All of the rest of the questions were about Vice President Biden.
I just want him to reach whatever he thinks the right decision is. And he has to do that. And it has to be a really hard one. And I was at his son's funeral. I mean, I cannot even imagine the grief and the heartbreak. I mean, Joe has had more terrible events than most people can even, contemplate. Losing his first wife, losing his first daughter, now losing his son. I think everybody should, he has to do what he has to do, but I'm just going to continue with my campaign. I'm going to do what I believe I should be doing, and he will have to decide what he should be doing.
Hillary Clinton yesterday responding for the first time to this new wave of speculation that the vice president might jump into the Democratic presidential primary against her. For his part, the vice president himself held an unusual conference call this week, yesterday, with members of the DNC. The ostensible topic was the Iran deal, but he also talked about his thinking on whether he's going to get in.
If I were to announce to run, I have to be able to commit to all of you that I would be able to give it my whole heart and my whole soul. And right now, both are pretty well banged up, and we're trying to figure out that issue. That's the truth of the matter, and but believe me, I'm giving this a lot of thought and dealing internally in the family about how we do this.
So that's what Vice President Biden has said himself about this decision, although it's clear those remarks were not intended to become public. People close to the vice president, though, have been telling the press that the vice president's decision might not come on this matter until October, which honestly strikes me as late. I mean, it does mean the vice president has plenty of time to make up his mind, but it also means that Hillary Clinton and the other candidates are about to face weeks and potentially months of reporters asking them about somebody who may or may not be running against them. It's a factor that may or may not ultimately be relevant in the race for the presidency. This is going to go on until October? We're not going to know? Joining us now is Steve Schale. He's a political strategist and advisor to the Draft Biden Committee. Mr. Schale, I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for your time tonight.
Hey, thank you.
So obviously the big question is whether or not the vice president is going to run. We'll short circuit that conversation by saying nobody knows yet. Perhaps an equally pressing question, though, is how long the question is going to be out there. Are Secretary Clinton and the other Democratic candidates really going to be having to wait until October until they know?
Well, Rachel, I mean, I've been in politics long enough to know that really nobody wants somebody else to get in the race. So I'm sure that the other campaigns don't like this sort of being out there. But the vice president, frankly, has earned the right to take his time on this decision. And clearly it's a big one he has to make. Our job is to get ready in case he does run. That's why we're out, recruiting volunteers, talking to donors, trying to ensure that there's infrastructure in place should the vice president decide to run, so that when he hits the ground running, there's a campaign kind of ready for him.
In that regard, in terms of infrastructure and staff and volunteers and all the other nuts and bolts things you need to do in order to run, what do you have in place? What are your plans?
Well, we've got, Draft Biden, we've got volunteers active in 46 states right now. We'll be at 50, probably by the first part of next week. We've got over 250,000 people on our email list. I can tell you just in the 72 hours or so I've been involved in the operation, the phone calls I've gotten from donors and people looking to get involved, staff, has been really pretty remarkable. So we feel really good about the enthusiasm. And frankly, a lot of what we're trying to do is just send a message to the vice president as he's making his decision. Listen, there are folks out here that want you to do this. And if you do it, we'll have your back.
As it gets later and later in the process, I think this question I'm about to ask you is going to get more and more pressing. If this were very early on, nobody would ask this. But as it gets later, it starts to feel like a draft Biden effort. And even just the draft Biden speculation ends up being subtractive from the other candidates in terms of the enthusiasm for them, in terms of what they can line up, in terms of fundraising and commitments. As it gets later and later and later, it starts to feel like you cost the other candidates more and more. If the decision does go very late and the vice president decides not to run, does the draft Biden effort then redound to whoever else is going to be the Democratic nominee? Does it become an effort that supports another candidate, if need be?
Well, listen, I think that's sort of speculative, but I would disagree with the larger point. The reality is, since the vice president has made it more public that he was seriously considering, since we ramped up our efforts, you've seen a lot of coverage on the Democratic side of the primary equation. Really, up until 10 days ago or so, the entire conversation was about Trump and the Republicans. We were pretty much drowned out, So I think that Biden's consideration has actually helped our cause. More people are talking about our issues, that are out registering our voters, that are activating our supporters. That's good for us come next November.
Steve Schale, political strategist, advisor to the Draft Biden Committee. It's actually very helpful, illuminating to hear your thoughts on this. I hope you'll come back and keep talking to us.
Would love to. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks very much. All right. Much more. It's an interesting question, If you get people psyched about conflict on the Democratic side right now, whether or not it turns into an actual contested primary, does that excitement redound to whoever the nominee is going to be? Or is it just for the prospect of a person who might not run? I don't know. We'll see. Much more ahead tonight. Stay with us.